You're listening to the LDS Sexologist, a podcast devoted to tackling the taboo and finding the connection between spirituality and sexuality. To submit your anonymous questions, click the link in my Instagram bio. Hello everyone and welcome back to the LDS Sexologist. You guys, I'm feeling a bit defensive today. I'm feeling fired up. I'm feeling sassy. Because, well, for a lot of reasons. But the first and most primary being, my Instagram. Okay, so let's backtrack. When I first made my Instagram, the LDS Sexologist, and also my other Instagram for my other podcast, which is called Life According to Nikki, I decided that I was not going to read any comments because, you know, it's better for your mental health. And I was like, if I'm actually going to get big, then I just need to not enter into that space, and I'm going to have other people read my comments. Now, for my Life According to Nikki page, that's my other podcast, that one, I have never read a comment on it for good reason. Because that particular podcast that I have and like that page, I just kind of like, I don't know, I randomly post on that one. It's very inconsistent, and it's just random stuff. And it found its way to the Australians because I was living in Australia at the time and, you know, easy content, American living in Australia. And the thing about Australians is they hate Americans for, like, literally no reason. It makes no sense. I got over there and was like, hey, guys. And they're like, we hate you. It's like, whoa. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize we had beef. What? I can be vegetarian. Like, it's all good. Okay, not all Australians, but for the most part. So anyways, that particular page found its way not only to Australians, but Australian middle-aged men. And it was quite humorous, actually, that was the demographic in which I was serving. And that's who was commenting, and they just, like, love to make sure that they post their mean opinion. So I've heard. I mean, obviously I've seen them on other people's pages. I know where they're at. Well, anyways, on that Instagram, because I was posting and it very quickly turned into like just rage baiting these middle-aged men, for my own personal entertainment, I would just hand my phone over to my friends and then they would read me any comment that was like worth reading, you know, something funny or humorous, but keeping all of the mean, whatever, rude slander comments away from me because I just don't care and I don't need that in my life. I don't need to know what some random stranger has to say about me that isn't nice. Like, I don't need to know. Well, anyways, the LDS Sexologist, I also have not read comments up until this point, but at this point in time, I kind of have to because I don't have a social media manager at the moment, whereas I did before, but then I went to Australia. So, and oh my gosh. This is why I don't read comments, because yes, for the most part, like, people can be so nice and great and like genuinely appreciate that, but I just don't get it. I can't understand going out of your way to make a comment on someone, to say something like a question, and then I respond because I'm like, oh, they're like asking a question. And the other day, I got this comment that was like, oh, no, sorry, not a question, just a statement. I am an ex-Mormon, and I think that this is terrible. And I was like, oh, well, babe, you could have just said that from the beginning, or, better yet, not said anything. Like, the option to scroll past is always available. I have never once thought, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go out of my way to make a comment on someone else's page just to let them know I'm upset and angry at what they had to post. Like, that just never has crossed my mind, so it just surprises me every time that it crosses someone else's mind, like, understanding how different we are as people in the world, you know? Like, the things that I would look at and be like, you know, that's not worth my time, that's not worth my energy, and it's also, I don't have enough hate in my heart to, like, let someone know that I dislike them. Like, if I dislike you, you know what, I'm gonna keep that to myself and I'm gonna share it with my besties in the private group chat, and you're not gonna know anything about it, you know? Or I'll just not say anything at all. Whereas, like, I'd actually, it's fine if you talk behind my back. How about you not say it to my face, actually? Anyways, I got this DM this morning. All of this is just such a rant. We are going to get to something at this we are, I promise. But, let me do a 5-minute rant first. So this morning I get this DM, private message. Those are my favorite. The amount of private messages that I get on my other Instagram, by the way, I just mass delete. I never read them because on my other Instagram I have over 10,000 followers. And and again, for whatever reason, my Instagram, my other one, has found the middle-aged white men of Australia, and they are mean. They are freaking brutal. I mean, I can only read like one sentence of their messages, and they're always like, you C word, you F word, whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, babe, calm down. So I just mass delete, but these men, they love a DM. They absolutely love to be up in the DMs. So this is what's gonna spark our conversation today, is this particular DM that I got. Hold on, where is it? I need to go to it. It was in my it was my requests. Okay. So it starts off like pretty mild. By the way, I will be name dropping. If you're gonna be in my DMs, you're not anonymous anymore, okay? If you're gonna comment on my page with your name, then I have every right, I feel, to out you. Because what? Okay, Eli Wright, who has 554 followers and 0 posts, and his profile picture, he looks quite young. I'm gonna say like mid-20s, and he has hiked King's Peak, which, great accomplishment. Good for you, bro. So he's in my DMs, and he says, hey, you came across my feed, and I'm curious how the things you talk about with toys and other stuff don't go against the word of wisdom or the commandments. Okay, we're starting off with a question. And when you start off with a question, I am an educator. So I'm immediately thinking, oh, that's a really good question. Yeah, let me answer that. But then we follow it up with a statement, which makes me think, I don't think you were actually asking a question there. I think you were just giving an opinion, but you put a question mark and it confused me. Because he follows this genuine question up with, because talking and posting about this as an LDS member is disgusting. Okay. Well, Eli Wright Eli _Wright _3. Let me address your questions first, even though you didn't actually ask them. Because if you actually asked them, I'm happy to answer. Like, why can't we just have a conversation? I don't get it, but okay, whatever. I need to calm down, obviously. Like, this is a me problem. I'm feeling defensive. And the more my Instagram gets exposed to people, which is great because I'm trying to gain more followers and everything right now, but the just double edge of that sword is gonna be the haters, or just like the people who are just rude or just ask stuff for no reason or just say things to you for no reason. Like, Eli, my brother in Christ. What? Oh, I'm gonna assume you're also an LDS member, okay? Is that something Jesus would? Sorry, is that something Jesus would DM? I don't think so. I don't think so. So I think we both can take a step back and say, how can I be more like my brother and Savior Jesus Christ right now? Because we both believe in that, right? Or at least we both say that we do. I don't know, actions speak louder than words. And let's address my actions that you are questioning, which are, let's see, just curious. Oh, that's the thing, the phrasing of this, I'm just curious. I guess it's the way that I'm reading it, because that's how I would write it. I'm just curious about how things that you talk about with toys and other stuff don't go against the word of wisdom or the commandments. Okay, so let's start up at the top with the word of wisdom. So the word of wisdom, for everyone who doesn't know, because I do have a lot of people that follow me and that are interested in my content that are not LDS members, because I have lived all over the world. I turns out I have a lot of non-member friends, which is amazing, and it adds so much to my life. Nothing has done my life greater good than getting out of Utah, and that's not to say that Utah isn't great. I love Utah. I absolutely love it with my whole heart. There are so many cultural things about Utah that are so special and so unique and amazing and magical to me. And then, of course, with any type of culture that you're going to have, where you have a lot of people that think the same way and that live the same way, that, sometimes we can get a little toxic, okay? We can. Let's just be honest about that. But leaving and going to places where I am the only one that looks like me, I'm the only one that believes like I do, going all over the world, and not just once, not just like on a mission, where I'm still like strongly involved in the church, and that's kind of different because I also did serve a mission. So that's a different thing. No, we're talking as a solo female traveler. I have lived by myself all over the world in countries where I did not speak the language, in countries where I had to completely start from scratch, in China and in Switzerland. And even though Australia was English speaking, let me tell you, that felt like a foreign country at times. And the Virgin Islands, where I felt I was the only member my age on the island. So this has all added to how I view the world, and not only the world, but how I live my faith and how I view the gospel, because I do not just have a Utah lens on these things. I have a worldwide perspective on the gospel and how that looks and how that is lived in the homes and lives of people who are not born and bred in Utah. I have also worked for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Okay, I worked at headquarters in the global communication department, so the department that is over the entire world, and it has all of the different sections of the world. It's divided up, and you have your directors in Africa, and you have them in the different parts of Europe, and it's all about how can we help get the message of the gospel out to all of these different countries with all of their different needs and their different cultures as well. And you have to have a global perspective for that, because what will work and be understood in Lehi, Utah is not going to work in Lebanon. Okay, that's also not going to work in the Philippines or in Japan or in, I don't know, Spain. Like, it's different. It is different. And the difference is what makes life so beautiful. And you want to know what we all have in common? That's right, our sexuality. We all are born with sexuality, but some cultures are more open with discussing it and expressing it. Think Latin America, or even not Spain. Spain, yes, is, but what am I thinking of? Italy. Much more open to the sensual side of us as human beings. The men tend to be much more in touch with their femininity as well, and it's more fluid there. And then Western society would look at that and we label it certain things because of the way that we view gender and blah 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 blah. But there's cultures that are very heightened in their suppression of sexuality as well, especially a lot of countries where there are dictators. The restrictions on women and the women have far less rights in certain countries, and their entire worth as a human being is tied up to their virginity or to their purity, and it has everything to do with their sexuality. There are just so many different countries in this world, okay? So please keep that in mind when you're just making a blanket statement of like, well, this isn't okay or this isn't okay. Maybe to you, in the culture you grew up in, and the sheltered little space of, a middle class to high class income America, Utah, Provo person. Like, you're living life differently and thinking differently than someone from even just another state to another country who is also an LDS member. Okay? All right. Again, are we feeling my defensiveness? I'm feeling it. Okay. So let's address what this man Eli asks. The word of wisdom. Okay, well, the word of wisdom, first off and foremost, is a health code. And when we're talking about vibrators specifically, let's just talk about vibrators. In no way does this go against, like, healthy living at all. The word of wisdom, let's pull up the word of wisdom. All right. The purpose and blessing of the word of wisdom is taught as a principle with a promise, aiming to maintain physical vitality, clarity of mind, and spiritual receptiveness. Obedience to these health practices is a requirement for members to enter church temples. Okay, and then this also involves, so this has our health code of like actual things that we either ingest or choose not to ingest. So this is going to be abstaining from alcohol, tobacco, coffee, black or green tea, and illegal drugs, and encourages eating meat sparingly, consuming grains, fruits, and vegetables with Thanksgiving and in the season in which like they're planted. So that is the word of wisdom. So we're already a little off base here, Eli, but if we're talking about just to maintain physical vitality, clarity of mind, and spiritual receptiveness, okay, let's look at what a vibrator is. It is a tool that can be used to help you to feel pleasure, but it can be more than that. It can also be something that can help you connect better with your spouse. It helps with a lot of blood flow. So what we know about human sexuality and about orgasm specifically, orgasm is amazing for your personal health, okay? I know might come as a shock to you, but for people that have chronic pain, like really chronic pain, one of the recommended methods for pain reduction is going to be sex or masturbation that leads to orgasm. Why is that? Because when you orgasm, you are able to withhold a lot more pain. Like your pain tolerance is way better and is reduced significantly, especially for women. They literally have research on this that an orgasm, it can increase your pain tolerance, like your threshold, from 75 to 107%. So this also allows the body to be able to handle more discomfort, and it also helps your central nervous system. I mean, you have two nervous systems, but it's able to help both systems to calm down, to relax. It's able to help your entire body to feel better. So this is also why I know some women really don't like having sex on their period, but it can be a really good pain reducer. If you have really bad cramps, if you have the right kind of sex, I should say, okay? So if you are thinking in your mind like, oh my gosh, no, I don't even want to be touched when I'm on my period. And for some, maybe that is how they feel, and that's completely fine, and you do not have to do this. But having really slow sex, especially if it's penetrative at all, being able to just like rub up against the cervix nice and gently, that can really help with the muscles to get them to slowly clench in and out rather than it being super fast. Like having it be more where we're calming the nervous system, we're getting the focus to be more on the pleasure at hand, and then getting you to a place of peak or orgasm can really help reduce your cramping in general, because it will also exhaust your lower pelvic floor muscles, so it'll be more difficult for them to spasm, to actually like cramp. Because if you can get them to spasm for an orgasm, well then now they're tired, and it's a lot harder for them to crunch as much as they do for your normal really painful cramping. So a lot of women do use sex as a way to help like mitigate or lessen their pain when they're on their period or just in, different phases of life when they're having pain. So, if we're talking about just pleasure in general, it is very healthy for your body to experience pleasure. It's needed. It is a driving force that we have as human beings towards pleasure, towards gratification. And of course, we use that in all sorts of ways. And we want to be able to do this thoughtfully and with an understanding of just not completely overindulging in the same way that I am very much drawn towards the gratification and pleasure of sugar. You know what? That is going to fall under the word of wisdom of looking at, is this really going to benefit me? Eating, an entire pan of brownies? Probably not. Like, it'll probably feel good for a couple minutes, but overall, it's not going to benefit my health. We have to look at things critically and be able to judge whether or not something's actually going to be beneficial for us and if it's going to lead us to the result we're looking for, which in the case of the word of wisdom is going to be, what was that definition again? Maintain physical vitality, clarity of mind, and spiritual receptiveness. Those are your end goals. So every time you're asking yourself, should I do this or should I do this? Is this right or is this wrong? That's really not the question you should be asking. Are these things that I'm doing leading me to the result I'm looking for? Is this leading me to what I actually want, which are, in this case, going to be those three things? And you have to be honest about that. If you're lying to yourself or just telling yourself the story that, you want to believe, and there's a part of you that feels a little bit guilty or like knows that you're not being fully truthful, well, then that's an issue. Okay, we're talking about being completely honest, having integrity and saying, okay, you know what? I can feel myself being a little indulgent here. I can feel myself kind of lying to myself here. Or you can say, no, this is absolutely what is going to bring me my goals. It is helping me reach those. This is a good thing. Then, okay, great. And when you can stand on 2 feet with true integrity and you can say, this is helping me reach the goals that God wants me to reach, then it's a lot easier to look around you and say, you may not agree, but I don't need you to. I don't need you to agree because this is something that I'm choosing. I'm going to use my agency and I'm going to do this for me. It may be different than culture, but, Jesus was way different than culture, all right? If there's one thing Jesus taught, it was to not just be the culture. I mean, he was healing on the Sabbath, and he was really going against the law at the time. Now, do not mishear me. Do not put words in my mouth where do not say that I am telling you, oh, well, just do whatever you want. No, listen to what I'm saying, okay? The culture at the time, when Jesus was around, with the Jewish culture that they had, very rule restricted, right? What was Jesus doing that was breaking the rules? I think we can all agree him healing someone on the Sabbath was actually for the greater good. And yes, it did go against the rules that were set, the culture that was set, but what was he actually doing? Right? He was doing good. And that's what he teaches us to do. So if what you're doing that's against the culture is not actually producing anything good, well, then I think you need to reassess what you're doing. Okay? But I'm saying that, yeah, if using vibrators is really against your personal culture, well, you don't have to do it, for one. You can scroll past. You can not listen to this episode. You don't have to. I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying it's an option available to you. And also, as someone who has 2 degrees in this field, okay, so I do know a thing or two, about what research says about this and also the clients that I work with, the way in which a simple vibrator can help change the entire dynamic and make it more pleasurable for both people is amazing, and it causes a lot of good to happen. It helps with the blood flow. When you start to understand the discrepancy in male blood flow versus female genital blood flow, that's that's significant. 10 to 15 seconds versus 22 to 30 minutes. That's a pretty big difference there. So when we can use a tool to make things a little bit easier, speed things up a little bit, make it more pleasurable, then why wouldn't we? You don't have to. In the same way that you can hand wash every dish. That you absolutely can. The dishes will get clean that way. But, it doesn't really necessarily go against your belief system to use a dishwasher. What does that do? Oh, well, it makes it easier and faster, right? To get the clean dishes. An electric toothbrush. You can absolutely brush your teeth with just, your hand and manual, acoustic, as Harry Styles once said. Or you can get an electric toothbrush and really get into the nooks and crannies. And you do it for what? Your dental health, because it's a little bit better. You get a water pick rather than a regular flosser. I mean, we have so many stinking devices that we use to automate and to make things easier for us and to help us get a better end result. This is the same. This is the same. It is just a tool. If you want to use it, it's available. It can make things way more fun. It can just add a little extra something. There are tons of different types. It's also really great for people with disabilities or who have mobility issues to make things more accessible to them. Okay, it's not just for one usage. You can use it for one thing, you can use it for a lot of different things, but no, it is not against the word of wisdom. It is not. I don't know how else to say that, but it's not. The other part is against the commandments. I mean, the commandment, the first and original, I'm going to be so cheeky here. The first original commandment was, multiply and replenish the earth. I would say it helps accomplish that tenfold. It makes people excited to get with their partner and to have physical intimacy, and anything promoting that, I think, is definitely following the commandments. You don't have to agree. You can scroll past. You don't have to listen. Because guess what? We all have agency and we are all here to learn how to use it. So go forth and use your agency. I guess he used it to comment on my page, but against the commandments, what commandment? I mean, look, I get it. I get that it is so taboo and it's never been talked about really before by anyone that you know of. It actually has been talked about for a very, very long time by BYU professors who have taught about healthy sexuality. Tammy Hill's a great one. She's probably the most well-known, but there's a lot of others that have researched for years, for decades, and that have been promoting the usage of different products, different tools, lubes, and not just vibrators, but all sorts of things to get couples to have greater connection together, to help our bodies function a little bit better. Yeah, no, this has actually been promoted for a very long time. It's been in the shadows. And I'm just bringing it to light. But apparently the light's a little too bright. No, really, I should not be this up in arms about it. And normally I'm not. Okay, normally I'm not. I don't know what it was about this particular DM today, but that one got me. But I know for a fact that most people are actually very intrigued and very supportive of, the awareness I'm trying to bring to the options that are available to them, and they find it very beneficial. And obviously, I focus all of my time and my energy on those people. And may I just say, let me tell a quick story. This is a life-changing thing for a lot of people. So I think maybe that's why I'm feeling really defensive because I'm like, when you come in with these statements of like, this is disgusting. Okay, well, some people think Brussels sprouts are disgusting. I think they taste delicious, alright? Like, that sounds like an opinion, not a fact. But we're saying it like it's a fact, and we're putting immediate shame on the person that you're saying is doing the disgusting thing. And it's just not helpful. It's not. If you're actually trying to, spread the good word of not using a vibrator and because you think it's disgusting, you're never gonna do it with shame and with guilt, because that has been the tactic that has been used for so long. So I'm so sorry that that is the only way in which you can relate to sexuality, and anything dealing with sexuality, anything outside of your norm, you immediately view as disgusting. Well, that's, I think, some work that maybe you should do yourself, but do not come for the people that are interested, because you have no idea what they've been through. Okay, you have no idea what their marriages are like, what their sex lives are like, but I do. I do know. And I know how beneficial these tools can be for them. I know how life changing they are for them. And it's because of this guilt and this shame that others have and that they have had for a long time that has stopped them from having real pleasure in their relationships. And that's devastating. It has caused all sorts of problems, and it has caused years, sometimes decades worth of just heartbreak. So, how about you back off of these people, okay? Because I had an amazing client who at first was very apprehensive to, what I was all about, what I'm doing. Completely understandable. I spoke in their ward, and I spoke to the Relief Society, and older woman, okay, over 80 years old. Well, she came up to me a bit later and was like, you mentioned that you worked in an adult store. I was like, yeah, absolutely. She's like, I didn't know that was allowed. And she didn't say it in like a judgmental way. I mean, she was genuinely asking. She was like, this is brand new information. Like, she comes from a generation where they were told that oral sex was wrong. So there's a lot of cultural nuance here. Just for anybody that doesn't know, you can absolutely have oral sex. Okay? I have lessons coming out about like the history. Again, this one has more to do with like the history of masturbation and Christianity. That is coming out, and I have a lot of not only just Christianity, but then I go into like LDS history and kind of how just anything dealing with sexuality has kind of been taught for a long time. But hey, guess what? We believe in modern revelation, and we believe in change, and we believe in understanding things better as time goes on. And yeah, guess what? You can do whatever you want. There is no, unless it is abusive in some way, like unless you feel that this is somehow wrong to, it is somehow someone taking advantage of you, then of course, like, that's not ever going to be okay if you ever feel that you are being abused in any capacity. But if something brings you pleasure and it's an enjoyable activity for you, there is nothing stopping ya. It is free reign, which is also where it gets tricky for people, where it goes from like, no, 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 to, yeah, do whatever. And then they're like, well, wait, yeah, what do you mean? So that's more like the generations now. But this particular woman that I was working with, she was 80, and this was brand new information. She had obviously never met a member who was in this field, but especially that had worked in a sex store. So we started talking, and she set some private appointments with me to understand some different products available, because she was, her husband, he's also older, and when you get to a certain age, usually it's past, like when you start getting to be like 60 years old, for men, because their prostate is enlarging, they're going to have more bladder issues. They're also going to get less nocturnal erections, which is going to make the penis nice and healthy, so they're going to get less of those. If they have any sort of cardiovascular problems, like heart health issues, that's going to directly affect the functioning of their penis. And then, of course, they're just going to get erectile dysfunction, as just the normal course that nature takes is women tend to come more into their own and have greater capacity for pleasure the older that they get, whereas for men, they start to have more challenges. They absolutely can still have thriving sex lives, but you need a little bit more, which is where, Viagra, and there's injections, and there's all sorts of things that are available. But the injections and the Viagra and the different tools that they have, or the pumps, those can feel quite clinical, and they kind of kill the mood, especially the injections, to help to get an erection. And for a lot of men, they deal with a lot of confidence issues, because unfortunately for men, a lot of times being a man is directly tied to the functioning of a penis. So that's rough when all of a sudden your penis doesn't work as well as it once did. And you've tied up a lot of your confidence in that. So for women, most of the time they really don't care. Like, it's not a problem when they get older, and if it fluctuates and goes flaccid and can't get a full erection, because there's a lot more pleasurable activities. And also because penetration is the least pleasurable for women. Only 18% of women orgasm vaginally. So yeah, you know what? It's not going to be that big of a deal. Especially if you are a good lover and you are able to have a variety of different things that you can do with each other to experience pleasure, then yeah, penis not working, fully functioning and all, ready to go all the time is not that big of a deal. But it's a really big deal to men, especially these older men. So in this particular case with this woman, she was asking, is there anything, because he really doesn't like the injections and, he doesn't like this stuff, that he could try to kind of help. And there absolutely is, 100%. So not only is it going to help to get the blood flow and help maintain it in the penis once he does have an erection, so just a simple C-ring, or cock is what it's called, cock ring, can really help with that. Now there's tons of different kinds, there's different types of straps, there's different types, they have vibrators on them as well to help not only just for the pleasure and the sensation, but then when you're wearing it, if your partner is on top, then there is also potential that she can feel it clitorally. Now, they've advertised like, yeah, this is just like a hands-free couples thing. It doesn't quite work like that, and I go into that on my videos about products, specifically about cock rings, but this can absolutely help with erectile dysfunction. And one, it's cheap. It's, like 40-50 bucks max, so you're not spending a ton of money on it, and it's less clinical, it's more fun, because you can use it in a variety of ways, especially if it vibrates. You can use that to trace along the body, and to like trace around the testicles, and to trace along the shaft, help get that blood flow going, help stimulate, and you can trace it just everywhere. There's just so many different things that you can do with it that make it more enjoyable as an experience, and then when you put it on, it can help. Or if it doesn't work in the way that you're wanting it to, there's really no downside to it. Whereas with the injections or something like that, like, there's potential risks, and then you obviously have to like stop and pause and then do it, and then if you get out of the mood, well, then now you have this like non-concordance going on. So this is just like a nice, easy thing to try, and for some men it really does help. So I had a private appointment with her and discussed the different options, and then we also talked about different lubes as well, because obviously she has had menopause and she no longer has ovarian estrogen, and like lubrication and things, and they've been trying just like a water-based, which is mostly what people know is just like a KY jelly water-based, but it absorbs so quickly, and for them, a silicone would be much better, or even a oil water blend, like a hybrid, would be much better because it lasts longer, it's more moisturizing, it's going to feel better for him as well. um, it's just going to feel better for both people. So got them set up with some different types of lube, some different products, and it was amazing. It was incredible to hear how great of a change these things made, and how much it was able to grow their relationship. Because that's the other thing about older people, is that once you reach, honestly, like 60 years old, you just are kind of deemed as asexual. Like, you're not doing that stuff anymore. 70? Absolutely not. 80? No. No one wants to think of their grandma having sex. Which, why? Why? Why do we just say, the only people that are allowed to have sex, or human sexuality in general, are going to be young, hot, skinny people? Like, those are the only ones. Anyone who has, weight that isn't the beauty standard, or age that isn't the standard, or maybe a disability, we only like to think of sex as being like able-bodied young people. But the world consists of a lot more than able-bodied young people. And so when we don't talk about these things, it makes them feel more isolated. They have these struggles that they're going through in their relationship, where they still want this to be a part of their life. They're not ready to give this up because why? They're supposed to give it up just because you told them to? Some stranger, some judgmental person that thinks it's disgusting that their grandparents are having sex? Okay, who are you? Who are you to judge that and to say that? This is a couple who made a lifelong commitment, and as far as I'm concerned, they're both alive. So why does this have to stop just because, what, it grosses you out? So this is where I come in, because I'm not there to say, well, let me put some limits on it because you're in a wheelchair, or because you have this problem, or because you're this age, or whatever, you unfortunately can no longer have sex. Like, no. In fact, there are palliative care workers, so people who are on hospice, and there are nurses and mental health specialists and people who are part of those teams, that they specialize in sexology. And so they go in to discuss your end-of-life sexual preferences and needs. And I know that that can be kind of, I don't know, it's just not something that a lot of people think about. So a lot of people, their immediate reaction to that is like, well, the last thing that you're thinking about when you're dying is like having sex. But how do you know? Have you ever died before? Have you ever been dying? Well, guess what? There's a lot of people that have, and there's a lot of research that has been done on those people. And when you have someone that's in their mid-40s that got a cancer diagnosis, and they have a spouse, and all of a sudden, what, they're just this huge part of their life and who they are as a person in their relationship, it just has to go away. Every single part of their life has changed. They have to accept a new reality. They're losing their hair, their body is changing. They may be accepting the fact that they may not be able to be there when their kids grow up. And then on top of it all, you're going to take away the closeness in which they can feel with their partner. That's a lot to take away from a person. And for what? Because they're sick? Like, just because you don't think you would think about that doesn't mean that everyone agrees with you. And in fact, research shows that you would be wrong. A lot of elderly people want to talk about their sex lives with their doctors beyond just, vaginal lubrication or erectile dysfunction. They want to talk about, how do I move into this next phase of my life with my partner where things look differently, our mobility is different, but how can we still enjoy each other? How can we still experience pleasure? What does this look like? Because we've never been taught. No one's ever told us that this was an option. We've only ever known it to be an option when we were younger. Well, we're not young anymore. So we just can't have it. We just can't be able to be close in this way anymore. That's not very fair. And then you have a lot of doctors that feel very uncomfortable because they're not trained to have these conversations. They don't know what to say, and they feel awkward about bringing it up. They don't want to offend anyone. Well, that's where sexologists come in. There are people that specialize in talking to elderly or disabled people about their sexual functioning, getting them mobility aids so that they can have sex together, whether it be penetrative or otherwise. There are lots of types of sex to be having, and I know that that's hard to conceptualize if you've only ever thought of sex as penetrative, but there's a lot of different ways in which you can enjoy each other and have pleasure, and yes, even orgasm. So just because that feels foreign to you, Mr. Eli, or whoever else that wants to be a hater and say that something is disgusting, well, think outside yourself for 2 seconds and how big and wide the world is, and all the different ways in which something may be made, and it's not just in the salacious way that they always advertise. Okay, I get it. Toy companies especially, they love to just like do the shock and the awe and the salacious branding and the names of the products, and we've only ever seen it as one thing, as one way. But that does not mean that it can only be used or function in that one way, because I have seen it be so beneficial. And there's nothing wrong also with it just being used as something to bring pleasure. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also so many uses that vibrators or products in general have that can enhance people's connection with each other, because that is the goal. That's the goal, is having healthy, intimate relationships. And sometimes having something that helps with that can be great, can add variety, and can just really enhance everything. So this sweet couple that I worked with, it was just darling to see them go from she even told me when I first came to talk, she was like, I was unsure about this and I thought, what could you know? But it was the conversations that we had where she was like, this is such an important topic, I feel like it's like mental health. It just has this huge stigma, but by having the stigma, we're not actually having conversations about it. And it's the more that we can talk about it, that this is normal, that it is normal for you to start to have erectile dysfunction when you're 80 years old. Okay? That's normal. And there are things that are made that can help with that and can make things just a little bit easier. So it was just great to see this couple just rediscover their sex life in their 80s. And oh my gosh, it just makes me so happy. It was so cute to see them so excited and like hear the reports back on how everything went and just how great it was and how excited they are to try all the new things. It's just awesome. I love that they get to discover this together in their 80s. What a wonderful, beautiful way to connect to each other. How fun is that? That's what I get to do for work. I mean, are we kidding? Am I just like the luckiest person on earth? I think so. That is also why I get so defensive. Because I'm like, you don't know these people that I talk to. You don't know the couples that I'm speaking with that are crying in my office because they, have pain or they just can't connect with one another. And then we have just one thing that's introduced, a proper lube or a tool or a vibrator or something that can help them. Even once I had like an ADHD client who was like just really big sensory overload, and so the towels that they would put down would just be too much, but she had a lot of lubrication just naturally, and so it would make a mess, and so it was just kind of like, we don't know what to do. Well, guess what? There are products. There's a Liberator blanket. There's a few other brands as well, but there's this blanket. It's by a brand called Liberator, and it's really soft. It's very thin, so it doesn't have like heat that it's adding. It's not like a plush blanket or anything, but it doesn't have the texture of a towel, and it's super, super flat. Think like picnic blanket. If you've ever had those where on like the backside it has like plastic, except this one doesn't necessarily have that. it's a little bit better. But anyways, you lay it down, and it is designed to have all sorts of mess all over it, lubrication, natural or, synthetic if you're using a lube, and then you just throw it in the washer and it washes right out, because the way that it's designed for these particular types of fluids, and it's super smooth, it's non-heating, so it's not going to make everything hotter, because that was another issue, was it was just like it just gets too hot in the room, and just sensory overload with the texture of the towels and the heat. And so this very simple thing, a blanket that was designed for lube, this being able to be laid down, changed everything, made things so much easier, so much better. So no, you can never convince me that this is a problem, because I see the good that all of these things can bring into the lives of those that want it and that are looking for this. Just because you're not doesn't mean that other people aren't. Okay? Oh my gosh. The last comment that I'm gonna talk about this was on my post that I did about 5 hills I'll die on as a Mormon with a master's degree in sexology. And I will stand by everything I put on there, okay? Well, someone, Fran Christelle said, and you still continue to be a member of a true that continues to feed into and pump out these lessons. I'm confused. I'm not sure you can be pro-woman, pro-positive sex, and Mormon. So I genuinely thought she was asking, because again, she asked a question. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll answer. Like an idiot. And then I answer, and then she goes, oh, sorry, I wasn't actually asking. I was stating my opinion as an ex-member that has seen the hatred towards women from the church and watched women be so painfully clueless sexually and or abused. And listen, I am so with you on that. Seeing hatred towards women and women being painfully clueless sexually and or abused. Babe, I have seen it all. All right? Not only have I seen it, I have researched it. I know the stats, and I know these women probably far better than you do, because I am seeing them in much higher volumes than just a regular person on the street, all right? Or just a woman with a bunch of woman friends. Not only do I have a lot of women in my life and friends and people that are a part of this, I also do this as a career, which means that I am a safe place for these women to come to and to talk about these things. So yeah, I'm aware. And that's why I do this. That's why I am sex positive. We need to be talking about sex positively. What is more positive than talking about what you deserve, and that you deserve someone who's going to treat you respectfully, that you have enough self-respect to be able to then treat someone else with respect, to up your confidence, instead of just, using sex as some sort of commodity or way in which, transactional. When you truly understand your worth and your divine nature, how our bodies were literally made for pleasure. We have an entire organ in the female body whose only purpose is pleasure. It has 18 different structures. It's an organ that is designed for this. That is incredible to me. And that is not something that I take lightly. That is something that I cherish and that matters. It has so much meaning to it. And it has helped build my confidence in being able to speak up for myself and be able to go after what I truly want. And what I want is a healthy, intimate relationship. And that should be the goal for all of us. And I'm helping women to advocate for that, but also for men to advocate for it as well, to understand what that actually looks like, what things you need to do in your own life in order to be someone that can be accepting of a healthy, intimate relationship, and also to be able to have some differentiation. Okay, we're going to throw a word out at you. To be able to be your own person with someone else. That is so important. That is the crux of a healthy relationship. It is not this codependency. No, that is not healthy. It's not healthy. You need to be able to be who you are in front of someone else, to be vulnerable, to be seen. You need to allow others to see you and be willing to see someone else and stand in the face of them not validating you, and also still be able to choose them and want it and go after your desires of being with another person. That all takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and understanding of our divine worth. So, yeah, it's extremely sex positive because we want positive sex lives. We want this to be an enjoyable, incredible experience. And we know that the best experiences that are had are when you are in a trusted relationship, when you are fully loved by someone, when you can be seen, when you can be vulnerable. And that's really hard to do after being with someone for, just a one night stand. Like, it just naturally pushes you towards the values that we have as members, because research shows the best sex is when you are married, when you are in a committed relationship, when you have taken vows. That is the most successful. I know that stats nowadays, all these marriages end in divorce and blah, blah, blah. And that is true to an extent. But you also have to, you can't just look at one study, okay? You can't just look at one stat and be like, and that's doctrine, and that's the truth. Because if you know anything about actual research, is that just, you need to look at everything. What is the big picture saying? What are all of these things saying? And it's saying that healthy relationships are ones in which people are choosing to come together and to be married and to commit to each other. That is not just, what we believe as LDS members. That is what data shows. So, yeah, nothing about being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, takes me away from this understanding of the importance of our sexuality. Because when we understand it and when we feel it for ourselves, one, we can stand up for ourselves a lot easier, which helps lessen our susceptibility to being a victim. That is not to say that it is by any way like a victim's fault if they are a victim survivor. It is never the victim's fault, ever. Hear me when I say that. But there are things that we can do to lessen our chances of becoming a victim. There are certain things that perpetrators look for, and low confidence and misunderstanding of human sexuality, of just lack of understanding in intimacy, those are really key indicators that they're looking for. If you feel uncomfortable about this topic, if you can't name your genitalia correctly, if you call it just a vagina rather than a vulva, these are things that bad people who seek out to hurt others are looking for. And you are much less likely to run into that and to be a victim of that if you do know these things. If they are talked about in a positive way, if you know that your body is yours and you get to choose what's done with it, and you get to choose when you interact with someone physically, and when you know that from such a young age, and you can grow in that confidence, that will set you up for a successful sex life. That will set you up to actually be vulnerable in your intimate relationships. And on the opposite side of that as well, when you know that, you are far less likely to be someone that would hurt someone else. So we need to be teaching about our divine worth and about the truthfulness of how often and how prevalent abuse happens, especially within the church. We need to be honest about that, because in the US, it's 1 in 4 women that are abused, and in Utah, it's 1 in 3. And it really, it's a lot of different things that brings that stat up and makes that real, but a lot of it comes from this shame. a lot of it comes from the lack of conversation that we're having. Because when things are out in the open, when we can shine a light on it, then we can actually see things clearly, we can talk, we can understand, and we can better use our agency. And a lot of people fear that if we talk about sex or if we talk about abuse, that somehow that it's going to lead to more, and that's just not true. In the same way that talking about suicide does not lead to more suicide. In fact, talking about it, making it an open conversation, and making it real and understanding and adding light to it and really being able to have an open discussion, that is what will help more people. And it does not lead to more suicides. In the same way that talking about sex does not lead to like more teens just going out and having sex. In fact, the data shows the opposite is true, because when they're able to actually ask questions and understand, then they're able to self-reflect. We're able to have more room for personal revelation, more room for pondering, and then we can make decisions with our agency, which isn't that what we believe in? Isn't that our whole thing as members? Is that we are here to use our agency? Well, then we should know what we're choosing. And if you're choosing the law of chastity, you should know what that means. You should know also the power that comes from that choice, the blessings that come, and the things that you are entitled to when you make those choices. I love the Doctrine and Covenant scripture where it talks about, with every law that is predicated, there is a blessing that is, oh my gosh, I used to be quite the scriptorian, but clearly I've lost my touch. But basically saying that there are certain blessings that are attached to certain commandments and certain things that we do, and nothing has made living the law of chastity easier for me than learning about the law of chastity. And no, it's not just the law of abstinence. Learning and understanding what this law is actually about, the 5 different elements to it, and being entitled to those blessings that come from, I'm not just doing this because I just don't have anyone in my life right now, so it's kind of easy to keep the law of chastity, or I'm naive, so I just, I'm not breaking it in any way, or no, I'm actively making a choice. I know exactly what I could be doing and I'm choosing this because this is what I want. This is what's going to lead me towards my goals as a person. And it also doesn't just stop when you get married, that all of a sudden you're not living the law of chastity anymore. Okay, we covenant to live the law of chastity. There's 5 parts to the law of chastity. And again, we just teach it as the law of abstinence. But there's so much more to it than that. There's so much beauty in this law. And it keeps me so centered. And it has kept me away from some really dangerous situations as well. It has made me so much more confident in saying no when someone comes along, and I can tell that they want to take advantage, that they do not respect me. They do not understand the gift of their own sexuality, so therefore they could never understand the gift of mine. And you are able to I'm not here to people please, especially with dating. When I'm talking to YSAs, if we want to cut down on abuse, this is how we do it. If we want to cut down on those numbers, we need to be talking about the shame and the guilt that causes deeper abnormal behaviors, and that typically lead to violence. That is not good, and by no means is that of God. So yeah, God wants this out in the open, and for us to be positive about talking about it, because the more positivity that we can bring, the more understanding, just the better we can all be around this topic, the less we're going to find, what someone does disgusting, and then also the less harm that we're going to cause as well. Okay, that was quite the rant that I just had. Thank you all for being here for it. I just need to get that off my chest. I hope, Eli, shout out to you. I hope you're listening, my brother. Maybe should I send him a DM and say, I talked about you on my podcast. Do we think he'll listen? I don't know. Maybe I won't. I don't know. But also to the woman that commented, listen, you do you. Do whatever you gotta do to protect your peace. But please, if you're gonna be just making a blanket statement, don't ask it as a question in my comments, because I'm an educator and I'm gonna take that incorrectly. I'm gonna think that you actually care about what I have to say. My bad! If you just want to express an opinion, maybe express it in your private group chat. Maybe tell your friends. Maybe don't take time out of your day to like post it on my page, okay? I get it if you felt like that was something you needed to do, but you know, I will block people. I'm I'm not gonna not block you if you're gonna be mean. That one wasn't necessarily mean, it was just kind of like funny to me. But to people that are mean, fair warning, you will be blocked. I'm not here to just put this stuff out there for feedback from everyone. Like, no, I am going to be selective about my feedback, because you being rude in my comments, I don't care so much about it towards me. I care about the people that are actually coming to me seeking help, that are then going to feel more shame and more judgment from people in my comments, that's going to stop them from getting the help that they need. Okay? I'm doing it for them. So be mean to me, whatever. But also, it's my favorite when the people that are like so mean have LDS written in their profile. And I'm like, this just feels very contrary to what we teach. So how about this week we all try and be a little bit more like Jesus, be a little bit nicer, and I don't know, maybe go check out a sex store. It's not as disgusting as you think. And I have lots of videos on my page, on my Patreon, that go through. I just made my lube videos public, so you're welcome. You can go and check those out, about the different types of lube, water-based, oil-based, silicone, and hybrids, and then the different brands, how they differ from each other, the different properties, and why you might get one over another. So all of that is available on YouTube, Patreon. My podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and my link tree. I have all of the like anonymous questions and all of my services. And then don't forget to press the shop page. It's like a swipe button. And that actually is categorized, like if you're trying to get a first time vibrator, what I recommend, and then you can go and purchase my vibrator video on my Patreon to learn all about the different types. So there you go. There's all my stuff, all my plugs. Follow me, subscribe, leave a nice comment, send it to your friend. Have a lovely week, everybody.